Hey guys, this is Ash and you're watching WriterGAsh. I hope you are having a wonderful day and you are ready to hear about Orilium, the magical readathon, really. And I am psyched to be doing a TBR slash just like a general video about everything related to that I've done so far and what I'm going to be doing in the month of April. So the magical readathon is a magical readathon. It is set in this world G created. I'm gonna link all of the Orilium related videos in my descriptions. Check it out. I love how much detail she went into. She created like history. So this is set in a world called Aldea, and there is magic, intrigue, and it is so good. It's like an RPG, and you basically make your own character. You create your own character's weapons and legacy, and since it's the magical readathon was originally a Hogwarts like owls themed thing, it's got guilds, and I love that. I love house system. Like growing up, every school I went to had houses, so like it feels, I love it. I love the team, like the feeling, and I am so excited for it. Anyway, so the world of Aldea has 4 continents. For your character, you pick which continent your character's from. You pick your character's heritage, because G went into detail about all the creatures that live in Orilium that you could pick from. I'm gonna talk all about my character because I'm super excited about her. She is badass, and I'm just really excited about all of it. So the first thing that happens in this readathon really is a Novice Path. This happened last September, before I knew this readathon existed. So when I found out about it in March, I decided I'm gonna complete it. So for the Novice Path, really, you had to complete 2 prompts, which is very doable. I looked at the prompts, and 2 of the books I was reading in March fitted perfectly. One of the prompts was a book with a map. While that wasn't why I was reading Truthwitch, and every book in the Witchland series has a map. And then I needed to read a 5-star prediction, which is why I was reading Hook, Line, and Sinker anyway. So, cha-ching! The Novice Path, here's the map, has these locations you go through. So G has this whole story about the journey. You make some choices along the way, and then those choices help you find your guild, your home, basically, in Orilium. So first, let's talk about the Novice Path. So while you only have to complete 2 prompts, I also went back and saw if I read anything for the other prompts in the last couple of months. Although in the moment I did read 2, so I made it regardless, but I wanted to make sure I had something for everything because I'm just that person. So for the Novice Path entrance is to read a book with a map, which is what Truthwitch was for, which is what I read in March as I was prepping for Orilium / doing this readathon. The next is the Ashthorn Tree, which is to read a book that keeps tempting you, and I read It Happened One Summer. Great book, loved it. I kept seeing it on TikTok and I was like, nope, it kept tempting me though. So fit to the T, I tell you. The next was Mist of Solitude, to read a standalone, and I counted One Last Summer for that. One last stop for that. The next is Ruin of Sky, to read a book with ghost, haunted house, or supernatural element, House of Sky and Breath. Then it was Obsidian Falls, thriller or mystery. I read The House of Death. Technically you could also count, what's it called? One of the in-depth books I read 2 days ago. The next is Tower of Rumination, a 5-star prediction, Hook, Line, and Sinker. And then finally, Orilium Academy Arc, to read something in a school setting, and I read Love Boat Taipei, which wasn't a school per se, but it was a summer school. It was an academy, so I counted it. So next is, so between the months of September and April, G said you could basically create your character however you wanted. You had prompts for different parts, like different aspects about your character, and you can pick and choose for that. So I decided I wanted my character to be from an urban setting. So I picked the urban option, and basically I had to read a book set in a city or town, which is basically every book I read. So I picked the X Chalk for that, which I read in March. The next was a province. So there are 4 continents, as I mentioned. Eartheria, I'm probably saying it wrong, Dark Meadow, Carador, and Dehradun. Dehradun. Oh my god, this sounds like Dehradun, which is an actual place in India. Or at least if I'm saying it wrong, I'm saying it that way. But I picked Carador. Carador is basically a culturally rich place. People like it lies on the ley lines. It's got so much magic, and it's just, life is very pleasant, is how they say. There is no lack of entertainment. There is no town in Carador that doesn't have at least 2 inns, a playhouse, and its own bardic college. And Carador is the only other place that has a magic academy, only other magic academy in Alia. So I felt like Carador really spoke to me. It's more similar to the kind of place I would want to live in. And initially, while I did end up creating a character with her own rich backstory, my character was based on me. So I answered all of these before deciding to create like an original character, to just answer these as myself. So I kept those elements in my character. And for this, I had to read a book from an ongoing series. So I read The Boyfriend Project, I counted The Boyfriend Project, which was the first book in the Boyfriend Project series, which I just finished last month, which was a fantastic series. Read it, it was great. The next was to pick your heritage. So there are different creatures in Orilium. There are humans, who also have magic. There are elves, there are earthlings, there are fire earthlings, there are air earthlings, there are, wait, is it water earthling, and then earth earthlings. I don't know why earthling sounds wrong. I decided I wanted my character to have parents who were different types of earthling. So my character's mother is a fire earthling, and her father is a wind earthling. An air earthling. I'm saying wind because it'll be obvious. So basically for the earthlings, you have to read a book with elemental magic. For the air earthling, I picked Wind Witch. And for fire earthling, I picked A Darker Shade of Magic. Remember, this is any book you've read between September and now. So I read Darker Shade of Magic in January. And every book I counted towards these anyways were like things I read in the last 2 months. And then you have your character. So my character is from an urban setting in Carador, and she is an earthling with air and fire magic. And after completing all of this, I was ready for the gear up. But before the gear up, for which you need a guild, you have to complete the quiz. And I'm gonna give you a quick look into the sorting quiz. Again, watch G's video. She goes into so much more details. I'm just talking about my choices here. So the first choice you have to make is at the Ashthorn Tree. The Ashthorn Tree is a beautiful sight, yet it is forbidden to study without a permit. Mysterious whispers emitted from within, and its trunk was covered in various unknown runes and symbols. So much knowledge to be gained. What did you do? So basically this is in the transcript. So since I didn't do it while it was happening, I didn't get to experience the instant decision-making thrill. But G posted everything, like the entire path story, like your journey through it. She wrote a story for it and posted it on her Google Drive. So I read it and I made my choices. So this was the first choice. So the Ashthorn Tree is a place of knowledge and it's forbidden to touch. But what did I do? I decided that I picked option D, which was you believe that energy of those ancient is inherently intertwined with your own. and is meant to be shared. You came back after dark and touched the tree to siphon the energy, power, and magic, both to honor it and prepare for your journey ahead. Then, at the Mist of Solitude, you were shown your deepest, darkest fear, and you had to live it. What a terrible experience. Now, how did you resist the hallucinogenic effect of the mist droplets? For this one, I tried to calm my breathing, minimized feedback by closing my eyes, and focused on my hands and feet. I established a connection with the earth and let it guide me to the exit. Then, when you're at the ruin of the sky, you come face to face with a hooded, oddly acting figure. And what is your first instinct? I decide that I would protect the people around me. I activated a protection glyph to shield both myself and my group. They could be dangerous. The next choice was, one by one, you have all fallen ill to near the obsidian fall. You recognized the symptoms of poisoning, but had only a couple of minutes to come up with a plan to keep yourself conscious. What do? I found a first aid kit and constructed a magical apparatus that tests your blood composition in order to locate and get rid of the poison. And finally, at the last stop, you're offered a gift at the Tower of Rumination, the second to last, because the last stop is Orilium. A rare, valuable scroll that holds information on the subject. There were 4 choices, but you could only pick one. Which one did you take? I decided to take the Scroll of Illusion. Now, if you check out G's video on finding your guild, she goes into so much detail about all of the options and what they mean. So I would suggest doing that, because she is just a fantastic, she has a fantastic aura, and it's just so much fun watching her talk about these. She is just so knowledgeable. So just check it out. Okay, so like I mentioned before, in the month of March, they had a gear up. In the gear up, you pick a conduit to channel your magic, and you pick a, what's it called? A legacy, something that is unique to your guild and let you learn and master. So for my conduit, I picked a crystal. And a crystal is unique to my guild, and I never mentioned it. So I am part of the House of Arcane, the guild that is more practical, focuses on values knowledge and science, and is just very work hard, play hard, and I annotated it all as myself so it fit, and I made my character as a mold, a fantasy version of myself. So I picked Crystal because it was an exclusive to my house, so my guild, so I had to pick it. But so how I did it, I made my RPG character photo here. I gave her a sword. So what I did in the story that I wrote her, because I'm writing a little story to as a fun little side thing, I had my character pick the crystal and then put it in her sword and just mold it together. So the conduit is still the crystal, but my character is badass and likes to carry a sword. But I did do prompts for both of these because swords was a conduit option, but it's not really my conduit, it's the crystal that's the conduit. But for crystal, I read Sunlight Over Crystal Sands. Don't get me started on how much I did not like it. You can watch my March wrap up to see how much I did not like it. Give it a 2 stars on a good day. But for sword, I did Blood Witch, which I was reading anyway. There was a sword on the cover, so blade on the cover was the prompt. And then for my legacy, I picked a pocket dimension, basically where you can store things away, and who doesn't want unlimited space? I could go hide there maybe, and that sounds freaking fantastic. Anyway, so I picked, and the prompt for that was super easy: to read an ebook. And I got sent the hookup plan by NetGalley, but not by NetGalley, by the publisher through NetGalley. And it was an ebook, and I freaking loved it. Anyway, so moving on to what's happening in April. So the Orilium Academy has 2 semesters, and they culminate into the spring and autumn equinoxes. And they're basically like your final exams. So you take certain classes, and during the spring equinox, you take exams for it. In the spring, it's just pass and fail based on what classes you take. In the autumn or fall, it is more you basically take specific classes based on your calling, and you take specific amounts of class, like you have to get certain points for that class. For example, if you need a distinguished for one of your class, that means you have to read 3 books for that class, and there'll be 3 different prompts for you. If you have to get qualified, you have to read 2, and if you just need an ordinary, you have to read 1. So basically, once you pick a calling, which you do now, you know what books you have to read this semester, and then what books you would need to prepare for, so you know how many books you would need. All of that's in the callings page for G's Drive. And that tells you how many books you'll read in the autumn. I'm hoping to find out more about the autumn soon, but the spring looks pretty fantastic. I'm hoping for like a roleplay experience like they did last time that I missed out on, but still retroactively experienced. Anyway, so I really struggle to pick my calling. A calling is just a job, really, but there are so many amazing options. I was just torn. There are 22 options, and I was between a rogue illusionist, a mage hunter, and a mind mender. So if you know anything about me, a mind mender, which is basically a psychologist, is basically me because I'm training to be a psychologist, which is why I was drawn to the other 2. So I was like, okay, a rogue illusionist sounds super cool. They can bend reality to their will. It's just so badass. I love it. And then mage hunter is basically a detective, which is I've always been fascinated by mystery novels. So like, why not? And then I created a quiz. I'm gonna link it in my description because like I'm proud of the questions and the algorithm I created. I literally used some of my professional training to create this quiz. I sat down, read each description, made sure each item had construct validity, and like, you know, measured what it was saying it was measuring. Very unscientifically though. It's not an actual personality test, disclaimer. But it was a fun like side project. It felt really great doing it. But I took it myself 3 times as myself and as my character, and it kept saying mind mender. So I have decided my character is going to be a mind mender. Now, before we talk about the spring semester, let's talk about my character. So as you know, she is a fire and air earthling. Her name is Ashlyn Montergoldew. She's the daughter of a spell sword. Her mother's the spell sword, because I wanted a badass mother. And her father is a healer, and he is the air earthling. Basically, her parents met at Orilium but never knew each other, and then later on when her mother almost dies at one of the missions, he's the healer that helps her, and then years later they get together. And then they come along, and because her mother is a spell sword, Ashlyn spent her entire life traveling through Aldea, exploring different places, watching from afar as her mother went on these epic adventures, and just hearing about them and experiencing them from like the sidelines, because obviously a child isn't gonna go fight some demons or monsters. And it's just, she was a nomad for a long time until she attended the academy at Carador when her family decided it was time to move back. And when they settled down and she went to school there, she really learned she wanted to excel at everything, and she pushed herself, and along the way she realized she wanted the Orilium Academy. She wanted the experience, she wanted to be the best, and to be the best she needed to go to Orilium. And that brings us to here. So Ashlyn, while she does not have a familiar, because that's a House of Crescent That's an Order of the Crescent thing. Ashlyn does have a pet. She has a ice wolf. So Ashlyn also has a twin brother that I forgot to mention. His name is Jax. And Jax has a fire wolf and she has an ice wolf. They found the wolves when they were children and they have loved those wolves ever since. They're like mirrors of themselves. And she takes the wolf with her to Orilium. Not as her familiar, just as a pet. So finally, let's talk about the spring equinox. As I mentioned, I'm gonna be doing the prompts for Mindmender, but I'll be taking hella classes, all electives, because only like 4 are required or 5. So the first class I'm gonna be taking is a requirement for Mindmender. I'm gonna be doing alchemy, for which I have to read a book with romance. And for that one, I decided to go with Crown of Midnight because it has romance. But here's the deal. My other goal this month is to reread the entire Throne of Glass series. So while I went through the prompts, I basically found a way to plug every one of those in. And it worked out perfectly. The next prompt, which is an elective, because not required for my calling, is Art of Illusion, to read a book with my favorite trope. And I picked Air of Fire because enemies to lovers. The next is Conjuration, to read a book with a light source on the cover, Kingdom of Ash. I have got the Nerdy Ink covers. So on the cover for Kingdom of Ash, there's stars. And that's why I counted it as a source of light. The next is Demonology, which is a requirement for my calling. And for that, I have to read a book with the word shadow in the title, Queen of Shadows. The next is Elemental Studies, to read a book under 100 pages. For this, I decided to do a Wonderment in Death, which is an in-depth novel. It's a novella, really. It's book number 41.5, and it's like less than 100 pages. The next, and that was an elective. The next is Spells and Incantation, which is to read short stories or essays. For this one, if you cannot guess, I'm reading Assassin's Blade because it's got 4 short stories. The next, again an elective, is Artificiary, to read something in an earth setting. I'm reading Dating Dr. Dill. It's been on my TBR since it came out, so I was like, yeah, let's read it. It's right there. The next is Inscription, also an elective, to read an intimidating book. I decided on Throne of Glass because I've dreaded reading it ever since I read it years ago because of what if I don't like it. I loved this book. This is one of my favorite books. What if I don't like it? It would break my heart. The next one I'm doing is Psionics and Divination. This is a requirement. And for this one, you have to read something in a future setting. So I'm reading Brotherhood in Death. The next is Restoration, also a requirement. For a book with Healer, I'm reading Tower of Dawn. And then the final class I'll be taking / reading for is Shapeshifting, which has a book with claws, a book with a creature with claws on the cover. This one, I'm being a little snarky. I'm reading Sweet Hand, which has cats on the cover. And what do cats have? They have claws. You don't actually see the claws, but they're there. Okay, and here's my logistical plan on how to make this all happen. Obviously, Throne of Glass, the later books are all of them are like over 500 pages. So to make it possible, my plan is to at least read till Queen of Shadow. And I have got an alternative for Tower of Dawn if I can't do Tower of Dawn. Since I'm reading Dating Dr. Dill for a elective and not really something I actually need to be reading, I'm going to use that for Restoration, which is a book I'm supposed to be reading for my calling, and use it because it's got a healer. He's a doctor, so I'll use it there if I need to. And then if I'm really struggling with the reading, I am planning on switching out Brotherhood in Death with Wonderment in Death, because Brotherhood in Death, a full-length book, Menton Death is a novella. I'm reading both, hopefully, but if not, I'll count that and for that instead of the under 100 pages, because again, elective, not required. And as long as I do my prompts for Mindbender, I'll be good. So I'm not too worried about it. My goal is to at least make it to Queen of Shadows this month, and ideally finish the whole Throne of Glass series, but at least all Queen of Shadows. I don't know how much sense this video made, guys, but I am really excited about the Magical Readathon and Orilium, and if you guys want to participate in it with me, please do. It is a fantastic readathon. Join the Discord because it's been a blast. I've just been having so much fun, and I hope you guys do it because it's been amazing, and I want to have more friends in this readathon. And I will see you guys at the end of the month to check in about how everything went.